Let's get some facts. 37% of you aren't subscribed to this channel. That's almost 4 out of 10 just freeloading the alpha. So come on, hit subscribe and I promise to keep leveling up the show with the best guests and the juiciest insight. Go on, do it now.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on day 3, Saturday, Breakpoint. Hopefully everybody has had an amazing time so far. I'm really, really grateful to be joined today by my friend Scott Lucas, who has traveled from New York, then London, arrived just this morning. So let's wake him up. Let's do another round of applause for Scott. So it was hard to miss, but in case you did, JPMorgan took part in a historic $50 million trade on the Solana public network. Galaxy was the issuer of a commercial paper, and Coinbase and Franklin Templeton took it down. I'm going to let Scott first start by talking a little bit about the mechanics of that. What was the trade?
Thanks, Nick, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's probably a bit surprising to have someone from JPMorgan on a staged, using a public blockchain network, but I think it's probably one of many times we'll do this as we go forward. And I certainly hope it is, because I think there's opportunity here for the broader market. And in this particular case, this is what we call commercial paper. Commercial paper is an instrument that companies use to manage their funding over time. And you kind of think about debt instruments. There's bonds, which are sort of longer dated. You've got medium-term notes in this sort of 2 to 3 to 4 year period, and then you've got commercial paper, which is typically inside a year. So if you've got things you need to fund inside a year, that's where we use this instrument. And they don't trade as much. They're easy to price, and they get syndicated out to the market. And we felt that was the right sort of instrument to start with when it comes to actually getting our toes in the water on public blockchain and finding the right issuers and investors. And so, yeah, it was finding an issuer, finding a buyer, or buyers in this case, which was great to have both your Coinbase and Franklin Templeton part of that. Great partnership across the group with Galaxy, Solana, and those all the teams. And it was really a question of how do we start to prove out that capital markets, internet capital markets on Solana is a thing that we think the market likes and they think the market can work to. So it was really a question for us as an arranger. We sit in the middle of these deals all the time. It's a big part of our business. We're a credit intermediary. In this case, we were an arranger. We created the token. We allocated that token into the Galaxy wallet, and then that was distributed from Galaxy to Coinbase and to Franklin on the Coinbase platform, and it was settled with USDC. So the whole mechanics of the actual instrument on-chain, which was a nice milestone to cross.
So just to reiterate that, amazing. So just to reiterate, JPM tokenized using the Token 22 token extensions program on Solana, DVP settlement on-chain for stablecoins. I mean, this is truly incredible. Would you say, Scott, if you could have pointed to this a year ago even, what would the probability have been in your mind to do something like this today?
A year ago from this time, I think it was a 0 probability outcome. I mean, there's a number of things that have changed in that year. Some of it has been around sort of the rule set. Some of it's been around just general market dynamics. Some of it's been around sort of risk appetite. But we were in a situation for a long time in the United States where there was the opportunity was pretty compressed, and now the opportunity is wider, and that's good because it allows us to understand what role this technology and more importantly, sort of a wider set of technologies can have on the economy and where we think capital markets will go in the future. And we couldn't even ask ourselves that question a little while ago, so it's actually good to be able to figure that out and really do some work to think about what role can blockchain, public blockchain, stable coins, other types of digital currencies play in the sort of global economy, because it's really about, and we were talking about this before, this is about growth. This isn't about, it's a cool technology. It's not about, hey, I want to do something different. This is about saying, if I can make some of these markets more efficient, I guess. What efficient means it's lower cost. Efficient means that I can extend the opportunity to a wider set of participants. Then what that really means is I can mobilize capital across the market in a way that I can't necessarily achieve with the current market structure. That's an economic growth story because you get more companies with more access to capital being able to do more things. Like that's the point of doing this stuff. It's not about the tech necessarily or the difference to the current market. It's about adding new things that have a great outcome. And we really think that's a good opportunity for the United States and other markets to explore. And that's the difference between a year ago and now is we couldn't explore that.
So this was a fairly complicated deal in the sense that there were a lot of parties involved. You had on the infrastructure side, Solana, Circle, Coinbase. On the deal side, Galaxy, Franklin, Coinbase. And then, of course, internally at JPM, the world's largest bank. How do you get something like this done?
It's really hard, really hard. I think, but the good thing is, as a franchise, like if you can make, and I think most institutions be the same. If you want to do something new, make a sensible argument, highlight the value of that, bring people with you, demonstrate the sort of technical and sort of understanding of how you would execute, and then just work through the checklist to get things done. And in an institution that's like ours, which is heavily regulated and large, like there's a lot of things on that checklist that we need to keep ourselves happy, we need to keep our regulators happy, we need to keep our clients happy. There's a lot of sort of components, that are probably 2 or 3 degrees separated from what you might see as the original idea, maybe even more. That just take a lot of like validation that it's one, possible to be done, and 2, it's kind of inside the risk appetite of what we think the right sort of footprint is for us and our clients. So that takes time. The good news is sort of once you've crossed that initial threshold, like you can build from there, and that's where we really see this being as a start point, not an end point. Like we've demonstrated this is possible. I think we sort of said during the week, like we would expect to extend this opportunity further across a wider set of issuers, a wider set of investors, a wider set of products. That's certainly our aim, is to then continue to pressure test and extend the horizons of what we can do here and really figure out what role Solana, what role sort of the broader ecosystem can play in capital markets. And I think that's a really important question to go after.
So we were talking about it this morning. There has been other corporate debt issued on chain. We think this might be the first commercial paper that's been issued, certainly on a public blockchain, I think.
Public blockchain, yep.
How did you pinpoint this as the product?
So we've done, where do you start with capital markets? It's a good question. Like there's so many different things you could do. And we've done a fair bit of research over the last few years, although we haven't been able to extend the horizons as much as we would have liked to until this year. We have been working on our own private chain. We looked at longer term, we looked at a bond, we looked at a medium term note, we looked at what, the demand side could do, what the rules were for them, where their risk appetite was. We looked at some of the secondary market considerations, and it really did narrow it into like, let's start at the short end of the curve. The risk profile is manageable for the issuer and the investor. If something changes, the duration risk of having that change is limited. They don't normally trade as much as, say, some of the longer dated instruments, or certainly there's not enough time to trade them. And so that really felt like it was the right place to start. And I wouldn't be surprised if over time, not just the product, but the duration of that curve starts to grow. And that's kind of how markets evolve anyway.
What's the reception been?
It's been really amazing. We've already had incoming from both sides of that equation, both investors and issuers, to learn more. There's been some expression of interest to do more. And that's been in like probably 16 business hours. So, I think when you think about that as a start point, I expect we'll see more next week. And really that's the objective, is to say to the market, look, there are other ways to do this. We can add to the existing market infrastructure. We're not going to turn the whole thing on its head in a short period of time, and we shouldn't, because if you go too fast and you do too much and you break something, you lose the opportunity. So being thoughtful, steady, but actually taking real risk is the way that we see that we can make a difference to how some of these markets work and how we can bring value to our clients and hopefully to the broader market structure. And it's only just, the noise is only just starting to sort of build there, and I think we'll hear more and more over the coming days and weeks. And I think our plans will be able to be met because of that sort of priming the pump through this deal.
Just to get a sense of scale, how deep is the CP market? Like in the traditional side, how much of this do you do a year?
I mean, the issuance is daily into the US market, and we did we did a deal on a private blockchain earlier this year, which is great. It's got some limitations around the extension, et cetera. But that one company, which they announced, they launched a $1 billion CP program. That's just for that tranche of that desk on this market on digital. So you think about that across the whole spectrum. You're a very, very deep triple-figure billions market that's turning over for high frequency. So there's a lot to be done.
So that's a great segue into why public blockchain and why Solana.
So the public blockchain thing, I think, is really important for us to understand. There are some really positive things about public blockchain that we would like to understand more. I think it's some distance before full-scale regulated financial markets can operate at scale on public blockchains. There's some questions to answer there, but we should absolutely be going that way. And there's a few reasons. One is, as we understand the sort of resilience components and sort of how these things get connected, there's an argument to be made about sort of more accessibility. So that's interesting. More accessibility brings with it more risk to answer those questions, and doing things helps you answer those properly. As a franchise, we have a very, very big technology budget. If at some point in the future we get comfortable with the risk and we can ask ourselves the question, do we want to use technology or run technology? Using it, if it's commoditized and cheap, might be a better option for us and our clients. So that again brings the sort of cost base down. And Solana was a pretty easy one to pick. I think we're very familiar with some of the other platforms out there. There's a real momentum behind the internet capital markets sort of story on Solana. And we felt that it was important for us to really understand how the technology works, how the platform works, how the ecosystem is growing, and what the opportunity looked forward. And I also think it's important for financial markets to have choice. And demonstrating that Solana's in the game, it has some capabilities on a range of different avenues, I think was an important statement to make as well.
So Scott, you very graciously joined us at Solana Accelerate in New York earlier this year. Mm-hmm. This is your first Breakpoint here in Abu Dhabi. Can you share your perception of Solana, not just the technology, but the broader ecosystem and community?
I think it's really exciting. Each time I come to one of these events, there's a new avenue to explore. I was talking to a couple of people backstage around. I met two people, and both of them had some things I wanted to follow up on. So, there's a lot of incredible innovation, I think, across this community. There's a lot of appetite for people to explore it. I think bring those two things together, and you start to that's where businesses come from, and it come back to the point around economic growth. That's part of that broader story. So I think Solana is playing a real role in that and bringing that sort of ingenuity and innovation to sort of what the opportunity looks like. Not all of it's going to be fine for regulated capital markets, and that's okay. There'll be some stuff that's retail focused and stuff that other markets focused. But there will be components that are really sort of important for us to understand and engage with and learn from. And even if some of the stuff is a little bit out there for us to ever operate in, having some of those ideas and dragging the conversation forward is really important, because that's how markets evolve. And if components of some of those more ingenious, sort of adventurous ideas that are being put forward on Solana actually get sort of distilled into things that make sense for regulated markets, that's a great outcome. That's where innovation comes from, that whole debate. So it's great to be immersed in that and really listen and hear what's happening, and we take some of those things away.
Will we be seeing JPMorgan do more on Solana?
I certainly hope so. We've got plans to. I think we've looked at the debt side of the equation. We have some plans to extend, again, issuers, investors, product. I mean, let's see what the market demand is off the back of kind of doing this sort of initial deal. And I think there is demand there, and we should really look to develop that further. I think it'd be great to explore what we can do on the equity side of the equation. There's a lot of activity around that in the United States, so there's work to do to think about where we could take that and how we would get there. But I think that'd be interesting to explore as well. And then once you've got the cash market moving, then you can start to explore derivatives in more meaningful ways. So there is a forward to explore, and we certainly, well, put it this way. Getting work done on one platform is really, really hard. Getting done on multiple platforms is super hard. I think for now we'll exploit what we've done with Solana and see where we go from there.
So last question. Given that you would have assigned a 0 probability of this happening a year ago, and we got it done.
Yep.
Unbelievable, we got it done.
Yep.
thanks to your hard work and the many around you and the other organizations that participated. What are we going to see a year from now?
I think we'll start to see a little bit of depth and breadth across the debt side for sure. Whether we see longer duration or not, I'm not convinced we'll get there. I think we need to have a little bit more of a footprint in the market of tradable assets and appetite to trade. I think some of the infrastructure around the secondary market still needs to evolve. So I still think it'll be pretty much short end of the curve, OTC type stuff for a while. But when you think about, you've got some stuff happening in private blockchain, you've got the crypto end, you've got this space in the middle, which is like capital markets on public blockchain. They're both kind of leaking into the center. And so it's a bit hard to predict exactly what will happen. But I'm very convinced a lot will happen. And Solana is going to be a key component of that. So it'll be, it's good to have the partnership and good to be part of the ecosystem and learning and contributing.
Scott, enormous gratitude for what you and JPMorgan have done, and we look forward to doing much more together. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you.
So you obviously like this video enough that you've got to the end. That's quite a big task. But listen, do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe button, and also check out what video's next, because I think you'll love it. But if you want even more, and when I'm talking more, I'm talking about member-generated ideas, incredible alpha, research, everything there to help you in your journey, just head to realvision.com/join for the best financial intelligence out there and the pure alpha that's within the platform.